charging more money for your offers does not mean that you need to put more time or more deliverables into your offer. In this episode, what we're going to talk about is how you can provide insane value to your clients without having to spend an insane amount of time working on delivering the offer. This is the Profit and Prosper podcast, the podcast where you'll learn how to pay yourself a six-figure paycheck from your business without having to sacrifice your life today. So for this episode, I actually want to tell a story because I think that it perfectly exemplifies exactly what I'm talking about with this idea that more time equals more money. Before I tell the story, though, I want to remind us that this mindset of hard work equals more money is something that is very deeply ingrained in basically all of us. And a lot of it has to do with culture, the way that we're brought up, the way that our families taught us about money and working. I know that for me, that when I was growing up, basically I was told without it being said in as many words, when I worked hard, when I was successful, that's when people love me. That's when people look at me as a quote unquote good person. And so it definitely takes a lot of unraveling to go from how we're raised in that way, especially as women. I think a lot of the times we're culturally taught that the value that we bring to the table is about how we serve others. So it can be really hard to go from all of that upbringing into a lot of us working in the corporate world, where obviously the more time you have your butt in the chair in front of your computer, the more successful you tend to be. And unraveling that is really hard. And it's something that I'm 4 years out of my corporate job. Actually, it feels like it's been so much longer than that. And I feel like I have just in the last year really started to get more comfortable with working less, but it took a lot of work on my nervous system, to be frank. So if it's hard for you to detach this idea that making money can be easy, that not only can you provide something that's worth a higher ticket price, not only are you deserving of making that much money, but also you're deserving to make that much money without having to work really hard for it, just know it's not easy to make this shift, but it is possible. And I'm going to tell you it's worth it from the other side. I'm at the end of taking a full month off of my agency business, and honestly working through that, being able to do that in part came from the way that my business is structured, because the way that we structure our offers is everything. And if I had structured my offers to where I still have to be the one providing all of the deliverables and all of the day-to-day support, I would not have been able to take the time off. But also just being able to be comfortable with the idea of actually stepping away from my business and not talking to clients for 33 days to be exact. It took a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. So back to the story. This is an example of a client. This is super common. I think every time I've worked with a client on implementing a high ticket offer, we go through a very similar process. So totally normal. But I have a client who we have been talking about implementing a high ticket offer in her business for a while. And honestly, she has kind of had a hard time separating charging a higher amount, a higher ticket price for her offers without including more deliverables. And I think it was a month or two ago, she literally said to me, "How can I charge more money for just adding a call with my clients?" And I thought, oh boy, this is going to take some unraveling. So this client went to a conference a few weeks back, and when she came back to a coaching call after this, she said that she overheard one of the experts in the industry basically saying that charging the prices that she charges is beginner level pricing, and that they charge almost 4 times what she currently charges. And she's definitely not a beginner, y'all. She came back and she was just like, what do I even do with this, right? How do I approach this? How do I get over this hurdle of being able to charge this much money for my services? So the specific client is in the podcast industry. I'm going to kind of give this example. And this is what I said to her. What type of client is going to want to pay $50,000 plus a year to have their podcast produced? What are the types of deliverables that you have to provide? Deliverables, whether it's like an actual like physical tangible thing, or I guess still intangible because it's a podcast, but you know what I'm saying? Or what types of strategic support do you have to provide to get them the result that they are going to pay $50,000 a year for? And so as someone who has a podcast and as someone who is very, obviously skews towards wanting to understand numbers for everything, I'm going to pay $50,000 a year for my podcast when I feel confident that my podcast is going to generate at least 4 to 5 times that much in revenue every single year. And the reason is I'm not just going to pay $50,000 to have somebody produce my episodes with high quality, because I can find other people to do that for much less than $50,000 a year. But I'm going to pay $50,000 a year if I have the support that I need to feel like, you know what, my podcast is going to generate me $20K a month on average, right? I'm happy to pay $50,000 to get that kind of return. And so asking her, what are the things that you would need to do for your client if you want to target that client who's going to pay you that much money, knowing that that's what they want out of their podcast. We said in some of the previous episodes, thinking through like what things does your client value? What are the goals that they have? And what are the problems that they currently have? Where are they currently now? And so asking her for that specific type of client. This is not the client who's just starting a podcast. This is not the type of client who has a very small business that's making, less than 6 figures a year. This is the type of client who already has a well-established business, who probably has a well-established brand and wants to take things to the next level. They want to take it up a notch. And so putting yourself in their shoes for a second, what are the specific things that you need to do for that client in order to take them from having a podcast that's maybe good, but doesn't convert $20K a month in sales, right? How do you help them get from A to B to Z? It is not just based on deliverables. So in this example, it's not about producing more podcast episodes. It's not about producing more clips from the episode. It's not even necessarily about the thumbnails or the show notes. I mean, it is, right? You need to have good thumbnails. You need to have good show notes, but it's not about that. And as we're on the call with this client over the course of the last few months, like some of the ideas are just around maybe we provide more social media captions. Maybe we help them with the email marketing for the podcast episodes, all of which are good things, but ultimately in a vacuum aren't going to get that target client the result of having a high converting podcast. And so when she said, how do I charge more money for just adding a call to the calendar every month? My response was basically, it's not just about the call. It is about coming up with the framework that takes them, again, back to your unique expertise and your skill set, coming up with the framework that works to get somebody from point A to where they want to go. And the point of the call is, I said this a few episodes ago, but it's like the electrician, right? It's not about putting the plug into the plug in the wall or like connecting the wire. It is about knowing which wire to put in which spot. It's about knowing which lever needs to be pulled for the client's podcast, in this example, to get their podcast to not just grow, to have more downloads, but also to convert sales. And so you design the framework, and then you have to put pieces in place in order to track their KPIs, to help them with accountability, to help them with brainstorming the overall strategy for their content and how it connects back to their brand and their messaging and their offers, right? And that is so much more than editing a podcast episode. So hopefully you can see from this example that the value for that offer does not come from the time it takes to deliver the podcast episode. As someone who is that target client, I do not care at all about cost. I'm not going to, because I don't want the E next to my podcast. I do not give a whatever about how much time it takes to edit my podcast episode. I don't care if it takes 20 minutes. I don't care if it takes 5 minutes, right? What I ultimately care about is obviously having something of high quality, but I care about the results that I'm getting. The time it takes does not matter. A lot of times, people will say, but if I try to scale back on time, like my clients do care about time and they want to pay me less if I'm putting less time in. And my feedback is, then you have the wrong client. We have to go back to who is the ideal client. We talked about this in previous episodes, but figuring out what is the value that you bring to the table, what is the transformation you provide, and who is the client that is going to want that transformation, is going to be willing to pay for it. And I'm going to tell you, as that type of person, as that type of client, I don't care about how much time it takes. I really don't even care that much. I do care, but I don't care that much about how much it costs either. Where I put my value as an established business owner is not on the money piece, it's on the results, right? If I see a clear ROI, I'm going to invest in that every single day. And that is a type of client, that's a different type of client than a lot of times you start off talking to in your business, because it can definitely be harder to find that type of client, but I'm telling you, they do exist. So what I want you to take from this is that as you are designing a high ticket offer for your business, you do not need to just heavily rely on more and more deliverables. And I'm not saying that can't be the case, right? So this example for this client, she could have an offer that does have more deliverables, that does have more podcast episodes and more YouTube videos and more reels and YouTube shorts and all kinds of other things and more email support and social media support. Absolutely, yes. But that is not the only way to charge a higher ticket price. Hopefully you can take some ideas from this about things that you could add into your offer that provide a lot of value that don't necessarily take a ton of your time. And that could involve the strategic support. It could involve developing a framework, a roadmap. You can come up with templates. You can come up with automations, because we didn't even talk about niching, right? Or specializing in a certain area. But once you get really good at delivering value to a certain type of client, you can really templatize and automate the process. And everybody always wants to think that they need customized this and that for their business. And I will tell you, absolutely, yes, I do with all of my clients, both in my agency business and in my coaching business. I absolutely do like customize things to the clients. But when you zoom out and look at the big picture, when you're working with clients in a particular industry or through a particular specialty, they all basically have the same problems. It all boils down to the same set of things. And so you can start to provide really great value by getting really good at delivering the transformation that they want, that they need, that that particular client needs. And then you can automate, you can templatize, you can develop a framework and just step them through it one at a time. All right, y'all. So if you are on board with implementing a high ticket offer in your business and you want to dive deeper into exactly how to do it and how to create an offer that clients line up to buy and that you can turn around and sell to scale your business to 20 to 50K months or more and make the shift into being a CEO, then sign up for my free 3-day mini course at sarahhyoung.com/CEO shift. In the 3 days, we're going to cover the step-by-step process for how to develop a high ticket offer and implement it in order to scale your business and ultimately do it in a way that is highly profitable and sustainable so that you can put more money in your pocket without having to work more hours. Specifically, you're going to want to sign up because day 3 is going to be taught live. I will have Q&A time, and in that time, we can use it to answer your burning questions about how you could implement a high ticket offer for you and workshop any issues that you're having as you try to figure out how to create that high ticket offer. So definitely go sign up. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you back for the next one.